This recruiting process for us was one that I was really proud of our coaches in this. These guys, we've got a competitive group of coaches who have a very high level of expectations that they set on themselves and that they set on us as a collective group for the caliber of player that we want to recruit here, and not only on the field but in the classroom and in the community and what they represent. And I think that was the general theme going into this recruiting class. This class is about quality. This isn't necessarily all about quantity. It's about getting quality individuals that are going to make us a better football team, that are going to continue us on a quest for not only a Pac-12 championship but a Rose Bowl championship and ultimately a national championship. And I think we've been able to do that. If you look at this class just in general, I believe there's 11 to 12 players that are 6'3" or taller on this roster, which if you look at our current roster from last season, I believe we had 25 or 26 total. So that number is almost half of that, which is something that we wanted to address. We wanted to address the explosiveness or playmaking ability at the wide receiver position. I think we were able to do that. We really wanted to address our pass rushing ability from the defensive line spot, and I think whether it's the edge rushers or the interior rushers, we were able to do that in their playmaking ability. We wanted more length and size at linebacker. We wanted more length and man-to-man coverage ability at the DB spot. We were able to do that. I think we were able to address our kicking needs by getting a guy who's really got a big, powerful leg that can be utilized not only on field goals but in the kickoff scenarios. We really wanted to try to find a center for our future. I thought we were able to do that and identify some young, talented tackles that could help us in that aspect as well. So on a lot of fronts, this is a great class, and I'll get into them individually now just to touch on each of those. On the offensive line, Dane Crane is a young man who we identified very early as a real potential all-conference, all-American type center. He's a guy who's got football in his blood. His father played collegiate football in this conference. Great kid, great leader. He really is one of the leaders of this class when you start talking about guys that guys related to and want to be around. And that's what a center's supposed to be. That's how he's supposed to be. We went down to Portland. Andrew Kirkland's a young man who came to camp with us this summer and went against some of the best pass rushers on the West Coast and continued to dominate in training camp and earned it. And he had a lot of people chasing him down here the last couple weeks, and he held them off to stay on board with us, which is really exciting. And then Coleman Shelton, you talk so much about the evaluation process, and so much of recruiting this day and age is about early recruiting and guys getting offers as sophomores and juniors. This guy's a unique story because this was one where the process was almost like the old school one, where you really watched a kid's senior film. You watched him compete in a very competitive league and division of Southern California, and he's a fantastic player. Quite honestly, he was under-recruited. We saw him. We had earmarked him. We were hopeful we could get to the end to where we could bring him in late and sign him. We were able to do it. He's a young guy. He's got plenty of room to develop, but really excited about what Coleman brings. David Ajamu is a big physical tight end. A position for us that we're going to have to develop here over the next couple years to continue down the road of the tight end position. We love his length. He's an extremely competitive young man. He's physical. We like what he brings. The wide receiver spot, you could argue, is probably the best core of wide receivers in any class in the country, and they're all different. Darrell Daniels, 6'4", 220-pound kid who ran in the high 10.6s, low 10.7s last year in the 100 meters. I expect him to run real fast again this year. He can really go. Excited about what he brings. John Ross, a little bit different, 5'11", 180-pound type kid who is fast. He'll probably run in the 10.5s or so this year down there, but very elusive, excellent return man. And then Damari Stringfellow, really high football IQ, 6'3", 215-pound wideout, who, if you walked in the room, he looks like an NFL wideout today. I mean, just a physical statured kid, comes from a very good program at Rancho Verde. So that group in and of itself, I think, has a chance to have some immediate impact for us. Levon Coleman, probably a typo here and my fault. I was at the home visit with him last week. He's weighing 220 pounds now, tailback, 6 foot, 220. Exactly what we were looking for in this class, to get a bigger physical type back to complement some of the other backs that we have in our program. So it's cool to address that need. And then lastly, on the offensive side of the ball, Troy Williams. Can't say enough about Troy. I've been recruiting him for 3 years. He's an extremely gifted young man. Quick release, strong arm, runs very, very well. He's not a runner. He's a passer first for sure, but can run. We're still researching it, but I think he's the first young man ever to be named the LA City Player of the Year 2 times in a row, which is a tremendous honor for him. Extremely competitive young man, back-to-back championships there at Narbonne, already enrolled in school, so we're pumped to have him. On the defensive side of the ball, bigger, faster, more athletic was the key for us. On the defensive line, Andrew Basham, a local young man, 6'4", 305. You watch his film, there's times he's playing middle linebacker. He's that good of an athlete. He's got a nasty streak to him. It was unique it was great for us to get a local kid with these talents here. Looking forward to him joining us. Marcus Faria is a kid from Arizona, originally from Louisiana. Got caught when Katrina hit and moved to Arizona with his mother. I'm excited to watch him rush the passer. You know, I think he brings a couple things that we might not have in our program right now. And he's a guy who committed to us in the summer, and really from one school after another that pounded on him, stayed true to his word, and at the end was the first guy that faxed in his letter of intent this morning at 7:01, which is a pretty cool story for him. JoJo Mathis, 6'4", 250. Relentless is the best word I can describe him as. Very good pass rusher. I think in the U.S. Army All-American game had a sack and a half in that game against some of the best players in the country. Again, natural-born leader, which is something we like out of him. And then Elijah Qualls at 6'2", 285. I think rushed for over 1,500 yards as a running back this year at Casa Grande High School there in Petaluma. Very athletic young man. So he's going to be an interior defensive lineman, but when he gets those one-on-one matchups on guards to rush the passer, really big key for us to develop that aspect of our game. He can do that. At the linebacker spot, length and size was key for us. We felt like we've got some of that going now with John Timu, Shaq Thompson, Travis Feeney. We want to continue down that road. So to get Azim Victor at 6'4", 230, Connor O'Brien at 6'3", 230, Sean Constantine at 6'2", 230, we addressed all of those needs that way. And all these guys are big, strong, physical guys but have length. Keyshawn Vieira is a kid who I've been in love with as a player since I went to a Narbonne Serra football game earlier this year. I felt like, and Troy's probably watching this, no offense, Troy, I felt like he was the best player on the field with probably 15 Division I football players on the field. And it was just a matter of time for us to get him in the mix. I think he's a great fit for us that way. In the secondary, I think one thing stands out. You just look at the length. 6'1", 190 for Patrick Anawali. Jermaine Kelly at 6'2", Kevin King at 6'2", Trevor Walker 5'11". All long, very good cover guys, physical. So that was key. And the big key for us on defense, we've had our issues here in the past of defending the spread offense. And so what do we need to do? How are we going to be better at defending the spread? Guys that can win one-on-one matchups and pass rush when teams are only blocking with 5 linemen and getting 5 guys out in the routes. Linebackers that have length, that can cover more ground, that have the ability to make tackles in space, and defensive backs that can not only cover, but cover in man-to-man settings, but also have the physicality to tackle on all those bubble screens and quick hit screens. And so that, I think we really addressed that aspect of it on the defensive side of the football. And then ultimately Cameron Van Winkle, a kicker from Mount Si, who tremendous leg as we touched on, going to be enrolling here. He'll be here for spring quarter, so he'll get 9 practices in his belt, and he'll be competing for some spots. So what's cool about this class, in closing before questions, I think we have guys in this class that can have an immediate impact on our football team and help us immediately when they step on campus. We have other guys that are going to continue to build upon the foundation that some of the other guys on our roster have laid, but will be contributors early and then be real players for us as we move forward. I think in just looking in general at our team, there's not going to be too many of these guys that are going to have to come in and play like we've had to in the past. We're at a point now where redshirting guys is becoming a luxury for us, where we can reap the benefits of their development in the end 4 years later. And I think we'll be able to do that more times than not with the guys in this class. So we're excited about it. I believe this class is in the upper echelon of our conference in a year in which our conference did a really nice job of recruiting. But I believe this class is right up there with the best ones in our conference, which is exactly where we should be.
Questions?
Steve, can you see adding?
Softy, I thought I would nail this thing, man. There'd be no questions. Go for it.
Any chance this class expands, or is this?
We have room to expand. Again, this was one where this was about quality, not so much quantity. So we do have room to expand if something poses itself that is intriguing to us. But as of right now, these are the guys that we have.
But you mentioned that the majority of these guys won't have to play right away. If there is a player or two that is maybe more game ready now,
That's hard. That's hard to say, just because we have to get them and they have to work. I do know that at the receiver spot, a couple of these guys are very gifted, so we'll see how that plays out. I do know that there's some real opportunity on the defensive line for some guys to step in and do some things. And I do know just on sheer numbers in the secondary right now, our numbers aren't great. And so there could be a couple of these guys that have a better chance maybe than others to step in and contribute.
On the linebackers, can you break down each of those guys, just kind of like where specifically linebacker, inside, outside?
Yeah. Well, Keyshawn Beer is a kid who we really feel like is going to be beneficial for us because of his athleticism. He played really the same position Sean Parker played at Narbonne, which was a down, outside linebacker, safety type spot. He's much bigger individual than Sean at 6'1", 210 right now today. So I think he'll be in that role of he'll have a huge impact for us in our nickel packages where he can do both, play linebacker, but yet still have the ability to cover. Sean Constantine is your traditional middle linebacker, which is something we need on our roster. We really didn't have a young, traditional middle linebacker type player. Tough-minded, obviously winning program in Bellevue. Connor O'Brien's a kid who was a safety wide receiver coming out of Rancho Santa Margarita, but you see his size at 6'3", 230. We think he's just his athleticism is really going to take off as an outside backer type for us in our system. And then Azim Victor, another inside linebacker type at 6'4", 230. I think this guy's probably going to, when it's time for him to play, be around 245, 250. He's going to be that type of a figure, an imposing figure in the middle of our defense.
The defense spreads out 4 defensive line, 4 linebackers, and 4 quarterbacks. Was it kind of key to make sure you hit every single position, or was that maybe one of the favorite or a little bit more?
It was about balance, and again, that's how it should be year in and year out. And, at the end of it all, when you put together a class and you have your individual position groups of, okay, this is what we're doing here, here, and here, and then off to the side you have your list of, I don't know if you want to say best players available, but it's like being in the draft, the NFL draft. It's one thing when you have a need and you want to assess a need, but there's also a value on a player that's off to the side that we can't not take this kid if he's still available to us right now. And so it fell out the way that it did, where we have 12 defensive players and broken out evenly, but we addressed our needs and we got quality players out of it.
Besides Van Winkle, anybody else coming in early?
As of right now, no. But guys are always fighting to make that happen late in the game. I think they get a little senioritis, and they want to get to college sooner rather than later.
Coach, you brought in Tosh before. He has a reputation of being one of the best recruiters in the country. Can you take a look at that list and maybe just talk about his impact in recruiting that maybe you haven't had in previous years?
Well, I think what's unique, Tosh, in his own right, is an excellent recruiter. He works at it. He's diligent. He's got great work ethic. I think he's got very good rapport with the kids. But I would say that's our entire staff now. I think Tosh, and not taking anything away from Tosh. Tosh gets a lot of credit for the work that he does, and deservedly so. probably our other coaches don't get enough credit. These guys bust their tails and they work hard at it. It's been a team and group effort on every one of these guys. There's not a guy on here that I can point to and say that's all because of one individual. There's been a lot of hands, and that's the beauty of the staff that we have in place today, is guys are willing to work with one another. There's no egos. This is about the University of Washington football program and getting the best players we can get, rather than he's mine, and he's mine. And Tosh has been the same way. When he's needed help, guys have stepped in for him, and when guys have needed help, Tosh has stepped in for them. And so that's the beauty of our class. So I couldn't point to one guy and say that's because of Tosh Lupoy. I'd like to say that's our entire staff.
Steve, for a year or two, you've been talking about wanting to get longer on defense.
Right.
Linebacker in the secondary. Similarly, across the lake, Pete Carroll, kind of in that time frame.
Sure.
Talking about you've got a 6'4" outside linebacker and the tallest corners in the NFL. Is that just coincidence, or have you guys had philosophical discussions?
Well, I had a chance this has been ongoing for us. I've been talking this way for about a couple years now. But I had a chance pre-training camp for us to go to a few Seahawk practices and to see Sherman, to see Browner, to see those backers, to see the defensive ends, to see Red Bryant, and the length that defense possesses that the Hawks have. I mean, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas is a freak, so he kind of, you push him aside. But what they have on defense is that length and their ability to run and to cover ground. That is something that we've been kind of aspiring to, and I think we've addressed a lot of that. It's one thing to want it; it's another thing. What are you doing about it to try to get there? And I think we've done that.
When you took kids out and showed them the new stadium, what kind of reactions did you get?
Wow, really, really wow. It was really. It's hard to imagine, and I don't. So much of everybody wants to talk about my office and the view from my office. Which is great. But to the kid, one of the most impressive things that we got out of this is when you get down underneath to where they're going to live their daily lives, the locker room, the weight room, the training room, the meeting rooms, and then when you come out and you walk out of that new tunnel and you look up at that south stands, it is impressive. And I think that's what got every kid. With the field being lowered, 7-8 feet, whatever that may be, and you look up at that thing, and it is just an impressive deal. So I think all in all, the kids that we brought in saw the vision of where that stadium's headed. I think a year from now, when I'm talking about it, it's going to be even more of an impact in recruiting for us. I really believe it's a game changer. It's in the best setting in sports for the best fans in college football. So it'll even be more of a game changer for us. But for now, this group saw the vision of where that stadium's going, and there was some real kind of jaw-dropping moments for them when they got in that stadium.
Can you talk about, you expanded the national recruiting a little bit where you got Trevor Walker from Texas and you brought in a couple guys from Georgia. Can you talk about maybe... We're very selective when we go out of the West Coast, let's say. It takes a unique relationship. It takes a unique young man that wants to come to the city of Seattle and the University of Washington when you start traveling, thousands of miles. And I thought we had really pinpointed the guys that responded well. We were able to get one of those young men in Trevor Walker, and we weren't able to get a few of the other ones. I think that that's not going to deter us from continuing to look at a more national scope. But we won't invest the majority of our time there. Majority of our time is going to be dedicated to the West Coast, to the state of Washington, and all the way down through Southern California and Nevada and Arizona. So, but there are going to be instances every year where we start to dabble a little bit more out of state to the unique scenarios where there's somewhat of a tie or relationship that really brings the kid in a want-to mentality to Seattle rather than where he's tied to the South or to the East Coast for that matter. So we did okay this year. I think as we start to develop some of those relationships and as some of these kids come in and start to have success for us, it'll make it a little bit easier. But as I said, we won't invest all of our time or the majority of our time there. It's going to be still dedicated to the West Coast.
See, back to the stadium, did you feel in the first few years here that there was, for lack of a better phrase, a facilities deficit that you had to try to...
I never paid that much attention to it, Art. I didn't let that
rule number 2 in our program is no excuses, and so I didn't let that say, well, we didn't get that kid because our stadium or our facility. I think Husky Stadium, prior to where it was today, was one of the more historic stadiums in college football, in the best setting in college football. And our game day atmosphere when it was there was amazing. All I can think of now is what it's going to be like and how it went from whatever it was to such a distinct advantage, a game-changing advantage for us, from not only our game day atmosphere, from a proximity standpoint, our fans being closer to the field, from a football facility standpoint, as I touched on earlier, that any young man that comes to this campus and to the University of Washington, I would like to believe one of, if not the highlight of their visit when they get here, is going to be Husky Stadium. That being said, we can't rely on that solely being the reason why we expect to get kids. It has to be, 1, our relationships with them, 2, the relationships with those players, with the players on our current roster, that they fit in our culture, and 3, that they fit the culture of this university and this community. But I do believe the new Husky Stadium is going to be a distinct advantage for us as we move forward.
Pete, how will the process be different over the next year with the new NCAA rules?
I tried not to pay too much attention to it. Not that I didn't want to, but once I immerse myself into the new rules and tactically how we're going to deal with those rules and what we're going to do with our staff and all of that, it's going to take me some time. I do feel for the kids some now, because as much as we say you don't get a hold of a kid, every kid's got Facebook, every kid's got Twitter. They're out there. I think the kids and the parents are trying to gain control of the process by utilizing their Twitter and Facebook. I think as coaches, we're trying to maintain control of it, and in between somewhere in there is the websites that are trying to earn a living, and they're trying to be in control of it in some standpoint. So there's this new move to unlimited phone calls, unlimited texting. Anybody can now call these kids. It's going to take some time strategically to figure out how we're going to address it. I do think it will have a significant impact on the process. To what degree, I don't know, and exactly how, I don't know yet. But I do think it'll have an impact.
Coach, can you talk a little bit more about wide receivers? Did you specifically target that as an area as a definite upgrade you specifically needed, or is that just kind of the way things felt?
No, we felt like we needed it. We felt like we needed a group that could come in here, that could score touchdowns, not necessarily always just in the red zone, but from a distance. And we didn't want 3 of the same guys. And oddly enough, and I know every coach could probably come up here and say, these are the exact 3 guys that we targeted and that we wanted at every position to make their class sound really good. I can honestly sit here and say these are the 3 wide receivers that we targeted as the top 3 in this class that we felt like could have an impact on our program. And what's been cool about all of this, all 3 of these young men have been committed to us for some time now, and none of them have wavered. Not one of them. Not the kids, not their parents, not their coaches. They've all been great about the process, and can't speak more about the character of these guys as well as the athleticism and the impact I think that they're going to have on our program.
A lot of people will say that's the best receiving class in the country. What is it that you presented to them that made Washington so attractive?
Well, I think we've done a nice job here in the last couple of years of recruiting quarterbacks. And any smart receiver knows that they want to go play with good quarterbacks. They want the ball. I think that we have a system in place that allows the football to go to a variety of people. It's not one that is just penciled in to throwing it to one guy or 2 guys. And I think their belief in us throwing the football still. And every one of them was explained very clearly their role and what they would be asked to do when they got here. And they all accepted that role, and they've all got a great relationship with one another and played in all-star games together. And I'm excited about the opportunity to coach them and to dial up plays for them and see what they can get going for us.
Just a couple more minutes, guys. We got to get to a Pac-12 TV thing in a minute.
The offensive line, are you concerned maybe in the depth?
I'm really not. Our numbers, our sheer numbers on the offensive line are not bad. We lost one player this year in graduation, and Drew Schaefer. We brought in 3. Our issue more than anything, especially this year on the offensive line, was our youth. We had a lot of young guys playing, a couple of which were probably playing too early, but because of injuries, that happened. From a sheer numbers standpoint, I'm not concerned at all. That's why we didn't reach late when we probably could have this morning and reached on a couple guys. We didn't do that. We stayed true to who we wanted and felt like could have an impact on this program as we move forward. It'll always be a position of emphasis that needs to be in any program. But I feel great about these guys. We got a center and 2 tackles, and that's been the emphasis for us. It wasn't the guard play this year at all.
I'll tell you what you staff, what did they do this morning? You guys all in the meeting room? Wait for the faxes to come in?
It's funny, you know, we're so accustomed to just recruiting West Coast guys, and we had a couple East Coast guys we were waiting on, and we were kind of all in sweats and hoodies and hanging out, and but a very serious approach to it. These guys, it's a good group. It's a good group. I think we're all a little bit anxious to get back to reconnecting with our current roster. You know, we've been hitting it hard here recruiting-wise for the last month since the bowl game. So reconnecting with our roster, reconnecting with our own families, our own kids, and you know, we got Junior Day Saturday for 2014. So away we go.
Through all this, it's creates new confidence, signing days new confidence. What do you enjoy the most in this whole process?
Getting to know these kids and their moms and dads and their families. You know, so much of the process is they come to us, they're coming to us, they're coming to us. And as a head coach, they've really limited my access to them. I don't get to spring recruit. I only get one opportunity to go into their home on home visits. And I really enjoy those home visits. I like to take the time to look at the pictures of the kids and they're young. I like to get to know moms, grandmas, brothers, sisters, because in the end, those are things that I can hold on to when these guys are on our campus. I can bring that up to them in a way that I'm real to these guys. And because ultimately I need to develop trust with these guys. And we have some, but we're not nearly where we need to be for us to really be as cohesive as we want with this group. I already have it with our current roster. So those personal relationships are the ones that I love. I love the competitive battles late in the game when guys are trying to come and take our guys right at the end. And we usually do really, really well with keeping them. We've lost a couple today, but that's it. You know, we fight our tails off to try to maybe swing a couple of the guys late that are 50-50. We got a couple of them. We didn't get a couple of them, but the competitive juices inside of me are what drives me. So the personal relationships and then those late game battles are always exciting.
Coach, you only took one running back, and you had 3 last year with pretty severe knee injuries. Was there a complication there? Is that
Again, numbers. You know, Kim, we if you just look at sheer numbers, we have a lot of backs. And that number will start to change some as these guys get older and move older. I'm confident in the rehab of those young men that are injured. Our starter was a sophomore who I thought had a tremendous year in Bishop. Kendall being a true freshman. Eric Wilson, a true freshman. Dwayne Washington redshirting last year. Again, quality. And I think Levon Coleman's a very quality back. He's a guy that, again, we earmarked very early at about this time last year as a guy we were going to go after. He was one of 2 that we really earmarked early. Another one's signing with another school in our conference, and we were able to get him, so we're excited about it.
All right, everybody. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.